How you going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to remove runs in your clear coat. So the issue that I had was my compressor wasn't able to give me enough air for my new spray gun, which inadvertently meant that I had to try and get the spray gun closer, and because the pressure was fluctuating so badly, I've ended up with 2 or 3 runs here as well as some orange peel. So what I'm going to show you today is how to get rid of these runs, and then we'll get this back to being perfect. As you can see, the paintwork is absolutely perfect here, and then when I get over to here, I've got a lot of orange peel, but I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but I've got a bit of a run there. And I've also got a small run here. And one there. So the first method I'm going to be using today is using the fine filler to go over the run, and then we'll rub that down. But just to let you know, so this is your run here. That's your flat part of your bodywork there. That's the run. Obviously that's protruding up over the flat surface. So what we're going to do essentially is fill this, put a skim of fine body filler over the top, because if you use the normal sanding block and you try and scuff this down, there is the chance that you can put the sanding block like that or like that and then burn into the clear coat here or here. To eliminate that, what I'm going to do is mix up some fine body filler and then skim it over the top like so, and then that way we've got protection here. And then what I'm going to do then is just sand up and down across the area, across in a X pattern, as well as going straight up and down, and eventually this is all going to wear away evenly, and then it's going to be a flat surface. And the second method will be using a razor blade to scuff away the run. So this is a brand new razor blade. Now, there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can put tape over the ends, or you can file down the ends, just so you don't scrape your bodywork. Some guys as well like to bend the razor blade. So the theory is you're going to scrape the very top peaks here of the runs, scrape it like so, keep scraping it all until this eventually goes flat like so. And then what we'll do then is we'll hit it with some 1000 grit sandpaper, then 1500, then 2000, then 3000, and then we'll buff it out. I've got a nice brand new razor blade here. I've got some 180 grit, and all I'm going to do is just sand down the corners, and then that way it's going to eliminate any risk of scratching the paintwork. Now, as you can see, I can put my finger here. It's not sharp anymore. Another thing I like to do is just put a little bit of a bend in the razor blade here. I just like to use it like so. If you have a look there, can you see the run? So obviously there's a lot of edges here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some tape here, along here, some tape along there, and then I'm going to put the fine filler across here and use a very small sanding block and just go up and down very slowly until this levels out. Now that'll allow me to focus directly on this section here. Some turbo glaze. Make sure we need it all. And as I said, you've got to make sure that your top coat, your clear coat, is hardened for a few days. Because if it's too soft, the chemicals in this might actually penetrate your clear coat. I'm only going to need a little bit like so. Minuscule bit of hardener. I'll just give it a good mix. Fold it over until the colour becomes uniform. Now I've put a little bit more hardener in this because I want this to harden quite quickly. Now there's quite a few lumps and bumps here. That's already starting to harden up already. That's good. What I'll do now is I'll let that harden for about 30 minutes and then I'll start off with the sandpaper. I'm going to start off with 400, 800, 1000, 1500, 2000 and then finally 3000. I've let this harden for around 30 minutes or so. So what I'm going to do first of all is just go over this with the 400 just to get the very top level of the body filler away. As I said, I'm just going to use this little sanding pad. That the colour's starting to change here at the top. So that's us starting to go down into the top coat. So we need to just try and sand down here at this edge here. All I'm doing is I'm just feeling the edges of the body filler to see how smooth it's getting, and then obviously to see how it's thinning out here. So I'm just going to leave this part here, but this part here I'll still need to use the 400 here. And you just want to make sure that you keep spraying the area. Right, I'm going to go up to 800 now and see how that goes. Now what I'll do is I'll go to 1000 grit. As you can see now, the runs disappear. So what I'll do now is I'll just go over everything here with 1500, 2000 and then 3000. All we're doing is refining the scratches. So the 400 left scratches, 800 left smaller scratches, 1000 and then 1500, 2000, 3000 very, very fine scratches as you go up the grades. And then last but not least, we'll then do the buffing. All I'm doing here now is refining the scratches from the 1000. I'm using 1500 now. Now we've still got a little bit of orange peel here, so I'll just refine that a little bit more. I don't want it completely flat because obviously when these cars come out of the factory, they don't have a perfect show car finish, so you need to have a little bit of orange peel so it doesn't look as if it's been painted. If you listen to the noise that this makes, you'll be able to tell whether you need new sandpaper or not. So listen to this noise when it's cutting the paint. That's when you know that it's actually doing its job. And you always want to make sure that this residue is clear. That lets you know that you're sanding down the clear coat. If that goes the colour of your base coat, then you know that you've actually burnt through. So you don't want to go any further because you've damaged the top coat. Now what I'm going to do is refine those scratches with the 2000. And now 3000. Time to get rid of the runs using the razor blade technique. First of all, what I'm going to do is just lightly sand this, just with some 400 very carefully. And then that way it'll show me exactly where the peak of the run is, the part that's protruding out. Just going to give it a spray with some soapy water. Put some 400 onto a sanding block. And then go very, very slowly and gently along the run. And then just use a microfiber cloth. And as you can see, it showed me exactly where the run is. So now I'll use the razor blade. If you're squeamish about noises, turn your volume down now. So I'm just using downward motion, going very slowly on the peak of the run. And due to the angle of this here, I decided to actually put tape on the corners as well, because I noticed I was getting a couple of little fine marks. As I said, what I like to do is I like to put tape on the edges, because sometimes no matter how careful you are, you'll still make little scratches, so this eliminates that risk. And as you can see, there's been quite a lot of material come off there, but I've managed to get most of the peak off. I'm going to run over this now with some 400, very light pressure, just to get the very last bit of the peak off there. And one of the reasons I like to do 3 coats of clear coat is because it gives me room to manoeuvre if I get any issues with my paint. Because this has obviously got a rounded edge on it, you need to be very careful, try not to get too close to the edges when you're using a flat block like this. You just want it to be going up and down like a crisscross motion. And then just keep checking. Right, now I'm going to hit this with some 800. As you can see, this is clear, so that indicates that that's your clear coat. Now, if this does turn red, or the colour of your base coat, then you know that you've went too far and you've actually went through the clear coat, which is not what we want to do. So just take your time, work slowly and methodically, and you'll get it done. As you can see, it's practically away. So as I'd said earlier, I've got quite a bit of orange peel on the front of this bumper. But what I'll do is I'll get all the runs sorted first, and then I'll come back and then attack all the orange peel in one go. It's just going to be the same scenario: 800, 1000, 1500, 2000, 3000. I have to be very careful with this one because it's so close to the edge here. And I'm just going to drag it across the peak of the drip of the sag here. You can see the material coming off here. And I try and pull it across the direction of the run. And one thing I'd like to point out is you've got to make sure that the clear coat has hardened for a few days. If you've not baked it in an oven, you'll need to let it harden for 2 or 3 days before you do any of this. Just something to bear in mind. Because this is more of a bend, I'm going to use this soft block underneath the 800 this time round. And then we just keep checking the work. Right, I think I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go up to 1500 now on that one. This one's very close to the edge here, so I'm going to have to be very, very careful with this one. This run is very tricky. As I said, it's actually went down and dripped down, so I just need to be very careful because I don't want to like gouge into the paintwork, if you know what I mean. Another quick tip is just to make sure that your sandpaper is clean. You don't have any dust or debris on it, because the last thing you want to do is introduce pigtails, little scrapes into your clear coat. That's all the runs now fixed and taken care of. So it's just a case now of getting rid of the excess orange peel that was left over. So I'll talk you through that now. So what I'll do first of all is I'll get some 1500 sandpaper. We'll put some soapy water on the paintwork here, and then we'll rub it down with the sandpaper. Now, because I've rubbed this down here with some 800, as you can see, it's left a lot of fine scratches. So what we need to do now is we'll go over that with some 1500, and then that'll refine the scratches and get rid of them. Then we'll be left with 1500 scratches, then we'll go to 2000, Then we'll get rid of the 1500, we'll have 2000, and then finally I'll go to the 3000. Depending on how bad your orange peel is, will tell you exactly what sandpaper that you need to use. If you've got really thick, lumpy orange peel, you'll probably need to start maybe at 1200. And if you rub that and you see that it's not really doing much, you'll probably need to drop down to 1000 or even 800. So it just depends on how bad your orange peel is. But you've got to make sure that you've got enough clear coat to be able to do that. I've also got a very fine line there. So I'll go over that with the razor blade, and then I'll continue on with the 1500. And what we want to do, as you can see, there's two different colours there. There's a light colour and then a red. We want to have everything looking uniform, like this here. And then that way you know that the paint is actually starting to flatten out. So there's not any orange peel here, it's starting to flatten out, but it's left a lot of scratches. So we'll need to get rid of these scratches now that's been left. So we'll go up to the next stage. As you can see, it's starting to get a lot better now. Very minimum orange peel. So now I'll go to the next stage. That's me now went over it all with 2000, and as you can see, all the orange peel, all the runs, everything that was going wrong with the bumper is now coming back. So all I'm going to do, final stage, is 3000, and then I'm going to buff it. Again, you can use the 3000, use a soft pad, keep everything wet, and then just refine the scratches. I'm just going to do this last part with a palm sander and an interface pad on the 3000. So I've actually noticed I've got a little fisheye there. So what I've done is I've mixed up some paint with a little bit of clear coat, and I'm just going to dab that onto that hole there and then let it dry, and then I'll sand that down, flatten that down. I'll let that harden. What I'll do now is I'll just put the heat gun onto this area there, move it all around, and then obviously this will harden it up a lot quicker. Depending on the size of the area that you want to buff, you can use a large buffing machine like this, which I tend just to use for like on big panels like doors and bonnets and what have you. Or you can use a small handheld buffer like this. Or indeed for little small spaces, I'd usually just use this battery drill here with a little attachment head on it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, on this part here, I'm going to use the 3M. So there's 3 stages there. I'm going to try that on this front part here. Then I'll try the other compound on this right hand side, and then I'll try the one stop on this side here, just to see what's quicker and what takes less work, and what gives us a better finish. So this is stage 1. You want to make sure your pad's clean, so I just use the air gun. But if you don't have an air gun, you can wash it in a bucket of hot soapy water. I'll leave the links in the description box for all the tools and materials that I've used today. So I'll just wet the sponge. And then I'll put 2 or 3 or 4 I should say, dabs. And then I'll just mix that, put that here all around. And then I'm just going to work in linear motion, up and down, and then from left to right. And we don't want to let this get dry. And then you just get a microfiber cloth and then just wipe off the residue. So there's still a lot of minute little scratches there, and the paintwork, if you look at the light and the paintwork, there's a lot of swirl marks and what have you. I mean, this car at the moment looks as if it's 20-year-old paint and it's been through the car wash umpteen times. But what we'll do now is we'll go into stage 2, and then you'll start to see the swirl marks disappear. So pretty much I'm going to be using this stage 2, sorry. What I'm going to use now is this stage 2, which, as you can see in the picture there, is telling you to use a black buffing pad. So I'll do that now. I'll try this bigger one first. If it's too big and cumbersome, I'll use this black buffing pad on the battery drill. I'll try this one first. After a couple of passes and on closer inspection, I decided that the scratches weren't refined enough, so I just went over everything again with the 2000 and 3000. I'm going to try the wheel pad. So it's just full of swirl marks now after the first pass. So I'll now go on to stage 2. Now that's after stage 2. Stage 3. And there you go, that's it done. And there you go, look at that for a shine. Now for this part here, I'm going to be using this rowing compound. Now the only difference this time is that this is a 2-stage rather than a 3-stage. Just put the head, a different head on it. This is actually the finishing compound. Okay, here we go. It's very important when you're on the very edges and corners to go very, very slow and use a nice soft sponge, because the last thing you want to do, as I said, after all of that work is burn through your paintwork. So you have to go really slowly and steadily, and always move the drill or your machine so that nothing gets too hot. And just apply a mild little bit of pressure so that you're not pushing too much and creating too much heat. and make sure that it doesn't get dry at any stage. Make sure it's always moist. I gave it another go with the finishing compound. There you go, that's how easy it is. All you need is a little bit of patience. Just persevere, and then you'll get rid of the runs, and you'll also get rid of the orange peel if you've got any, and leave a half decent job. Now I used the free stage, 3M, on all the front there, which has left a really decent job. On the side I used the mother 2-stage, and on the right I used the cutting compound, but I overall do prefer the 3M products. Well, we've came a long way, guys. If you can remember what this bumper was like only a few months ago, and now if you look at it, you would never know that this has been in an accident. So as I say, anything's possible if you put your mind to it. Let me know in the comments if there's any particular items that you recommend for cutting and polishing. And if you haven't already, guys, can you please like, comment and subscribe? Thank you. And that's it, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Take care.